Most new investors don't lose money because real estate is risky. They lose money because they don't actually understand what they're buying. They buy the idea of investing. They buy the excitement. They buy the highlight reel they saw. And then reality shows up slowly, quietly, in the form of unexpected expenses, stress, and decisions they weren't prepared to make. So today, I want to break down why most new investors lose money, and more importantly, how you can avoid it before you ever buy your first property. If we haven't met yet, hi, my name's Adriana Morales. I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida, and I work with first-time buyers, homeowners, and investors, especially people who want real estate to be a long-term wealth tool, not a short-term gamble. All right? Let's talk real estate. To understand why people lose money, we have to start at the very beginning, before any property is even chosen. Reason number one, most new investors don't actually know their goal. They say they want to invest in real estate, but they never define what that means. Are you trying to lower your living expenses, create monthly income, build long-term equity, reduce taxes, or simply stop renting? Each one of those goals leads to a completely different type of purchase. When there's no clear goal, people buy properties that don't truly serve them, and then they're confused when the results don't match their expectations. Real estate only works when the property matches the purpose. Buying without clarity is like starting a road trip without knowing the destination. You'll move, but you don't know if you're actually making progress. So before we even talk about price, location, or returns, here's where you slow everything down. You avoid this by getting crystal clear on what you're buying, not what sounds impressive, not what someone else did, but what makes sense for your life, your income, and your timeline. When the goal is clear, the right property becomes much easier to spot. Once someone decides they want to invest, this is usually the next mistake that shows up. Reason number two, they buy with emotion instead of structure. New investors fall in love with properties. They imagine future appreciation. They focus on what the home could become. But investing isn't about potential, it's about performance. A property can be beautiful and still lose money. It can be exciting and still be a bad deal. When emotion leads the decision, logic gets pushed aside. Rent assumptions get inflated, expenses get minimized, risks get brushed off, and that's how people end up stressed, overextended, and wondering where their money went. The market doesn't care how excited you were when you bought the property. So the way you protect yourself here is by removing emotion from the equation. You avoid this by treating the property like a business, not a dream. If the numbers don't make sense on paper, they won't magically work in real life. A boring deal that survives reality is far better than an exciting deal that collapses under pressure. Now, let's talk about something that quietly drains investors over time. Reason number three, most new investors underestimate the true cost of ownership. They calculate mortgage, taxes, insurance, and they stop there. But ownership comes with layers of expenses that don't always show up immediately. Maintenance, repairs, vacancy, turnover between tenants, property management, HOA increases, insurance adjustments, unexpected system failures like AC or plumbing. Real estate rarely fails overnight. It bleeds slowly when these costs weren't planned for. That's why people say, I don't understand, the rent should cover everything. It should, but only if the full picture was considered from the start. So instead of asking, what's the minimum this will cost, you need to flip the question. You avoid this by assuming things will cost more and take longer than expected. If a deal only works in a perfect scenario, it's not a deal, it's a gamble. Even when the numbers look okay, there's another reason investors still lose money. Reason number four, they choose strategy that doesn't match their lifestyle. Not every real estate strategy fits every person. I see people with full-time jobs buying high-maintenance properties, people with limited savings taking on high-risk projects, people who value peace, buying investments that require constant attention. And over time, stress replaces excitement. Real estate should support your life, not turn into another job you didn't sign up for. So this isn't about choosing the best strategy, it's about choosing the right one for you. You avoid this by asking, how much time do I realistically have? How much uncertainty can I handle? Do I want income now or growth later? The best investment is the one you can hold on to without burning out. Let's zoom out even further because the mistake shows up all the time. Reason number five, new investors ignore location fundamentals. They focus on price and forget demand. A cheap property in the wrong area isn't a bargain. It's a liability. Things like rent demand, job growth, zoning and restrictions, HOA rules, long-term development, all of these matter more than people realize. A property doesn't exist in isolation. It's tied to the health of everything around it. So instead of only asking, can I buy here? You need to ask a deeper question. You avoid this by looking at demand, not just affordability. If people don't consistently want to live there, the investment will struggle, no matter how good the price looked. Even strong-looking deals can fail for one final reason. Reason number 6, new investors leave no room for error. They assume best case rent, no vacancy, no repairs, no delays. But real estate is real life. Unexpected things happen, and when there's no cushion, the deal breaks under pressure. Margin isn't pessimism. Margin isn't protection. So this is where discipline comes in. You avoid this by only moving forward on deals that can survive mistakes, delays, and surprises. If everything has to go perfectly for it to work, it's fragile. And finally, this ties everything together. Reason number 7, most new investors try to figure everything out on their own. They rely on social media clips, generic advice, or assumptions that don't apply to their local market. But real estate is local, and one wrong assumption can cost years of progress. So instead of rushing into ownership, the smarter move is slowing down with the right support. You avoid this by working people who understand your market, ask better questions, help you see blind spots, and protect you from avoidable mistakes. Good guidance doesn't push, it protects. Most investors don't lose money because real estate doesn't work. They lose money because they skip the foundation. If you're thinking about investing or buying your first home as a step into investing, understanding this upfront changes everything. And if you want help breaking down what actually makes sense for your situation, that's exactly what I do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.